The galaxy was wide, endless, and full of stars. For millions of years it had carried countless civilizations, worlds filled with life, voices, and dreams. Yet, in this age, those voices were falling silent, one after another. A shadow moved across the stars, a power too strong, too merciless, and too sure of itself. They were called many names: the Eternal Dominion, the Star Lords. Different species used different words, but the meaning was always the same: conquerors. They came with fleets so large that their arrival covered entire skies. Cities burned before the people even had time to scream. Armies shattered before they could fire their first shots. The Empire did not bargain. It did not ask for surrender. It only demanded obedience or death. And so, one by one, worlds fell. Planets that had stood for thousands of years were gone in days. Grand empires that once believed they were eternal now existed only as dust under the boots of their conquerors. The Dominion never slowed, never paused. Each victory only made them hungrier, more certain that no one could stand against them. Among the stars, fear became a language all could understand. Merchants whispered to each other as they carried goods from one station to another. Refugees spoke in broken voices as they fled the ruins of their homes. Soldiers lowered their eyes in shame, knowing that no matter how hard they fought, their fleets would burn all the same. Even the great councils of the galaxy, the leaders of dozens of species, sat in silence, because they had no answer. The Dominion was unstoppable. That was the truth that echoed across every corner of space. But in that silence, another sound began to rise. A whisper, a rumor, a story that no one could prove, yet no one could ignore. It was said that somewhere, out in the dark, a ship still waited. Not an alien ship, not a fleet, not a coalition of powers, but a single warship, human-built, human-crewed, a vessel that had not yet been crushed. Beneath the Empire's iron fist, the story spread slowly, like fire in the cold. On mining colonies, workers told it to each other during long shifts, their voices low but hopeful. On refugee ships, broken families clung to the rumor as if it were the last thread of light. Even smugglers, hard men and women who believed in nothing but credits, spoke of it in hushed tones. They said the ship was old, scarred, but alive. They said its guns had fire that could burn even the Dominion's strongest ships. Most dismissed it as nonsense. Just another tale to make the weak feel braver before they were crushed. But the Empire's commanders, they did not laugh. Because, deep in their records, in the endless lists of conquered systems, there were battles that did not go as planned, fleets that disappeared, stations that reported strange energy signatures before going dark. Wreckage found drifting in places where no official fight had ever been declared. Always the same signature. Always the same ghost. The humans had always been strange. The Empire had studied them, weighed them, judged them as no threat. A young species, fierce, yes, but small. Fragile compared to the giants of the galaxy. Yet, somehow, humanity had survived wars that should have erased them. And now, perhaps, they had built something the Dominion did not understand. Fear, once only felt by the conquered, now began to creep into the hearts of the conquerors themselves. The galaxy held its breath. Was it true? Was there really a ship, waiting in the dark, a warship that carried not just guns, but something stronger, human will? No one could answer. The rumors gave no names, no coordinates, no proof. Only the same phrase repeated again and again, in bars, in bunkers, in hidden corners of the stars. They say the humans still fight. For the Dominion, it was a small thing, almost laughable. A single ship against an empire of thousands. Yet, when they moved deeper into human space, the laughter faded. Their scouts did not return. Their advance slowed. And then, one night, in the silence between the stars, the shadow of a warship appeared on their sensors. Long, silent, waiting. The rumor was no longer just a rumor, and for the first time in centuries, the conquerors felt something they thought they had forgotten. Fear. The Dominion believed itself eternal. Its fleets stretched across the stars, an endless wave of metal and fire. Each ship was forged in the heart of dying suns, built with technology stolen from every world they had crushed. They were not just soldiers, they were collectors of power. Every victory gave them more weapons, more knowledge, more slaves to serve their war machine. No one dared resist them for long, because resistance always ended the same way: burning cities, broken armies, and silence. They moved through the galaxy like predators, confident and untouchable. Their admirals laughed in their grand halls. Their commanders drank to victories before battles were even fought. and their soldiers walked with pride, believing themselves chosen by destiny. The Dominion was not just strong, it was arrogant, and arrogance had made them blind. To the conquered, the sight of Dominion fleets arriving was the end of hope. First came the heavy carriers, giant beasts carrying endless swarms of fighters. Then came the destroyers, longships armed with cannons, strong enough to split moons apart. Finally, the flagships, massive floating fortresses, symbols of terror that no world dared challenge. Their approach filled skies with fire, their engines roared louder than thunder, and their weapons rained destruction on anything that moved. Entire planets surrendered before a single shot was fired, because they knew what would happen if they didn't. To the Dominion, humans were just another target, another weak species clinging to their fragile worlds, barely advanced enough to stand on the galactic stage. They studied humanity, measured their fleets, and marked them as small, easy prey. One more star system to add to their list. Their leaders spoke with smug certainty. The humans will fall in days, they always do. But something about humanity unsettled them. They remembered scattered reports of battles that ended strangely, Dominion fleets that had taken heavier losses than expected, commanders who returned home with scarred pride, muttering about human stubbornness. Soldiers spoke of human fighters who refused to surrender, even when hopelessly outnumbered. Instead of fear, the humans carried something else into battle. Defiance. Defiance was dangerous. It spread like fire. Still, the Dominion dismissed it. Numbers would win, as they always had. They began their campaign with confidence. World after world fell to their power. Human colonies burned. Fleets were shattered. Cities were ground into dust. The Dominion saw no difference in humans compared to all the others who had come before them, yet, quietly, unease grew. Because this war was not like the others. Humans did not vanish quietly. Every world they lost became a story of last stands. Every fleet destroyed became a legend of bravery. Refugees carried those stories too. Other systems, and from those stories came whispers of a single ship. At first, the commanders ignored it. Just a rumor, but the more battles they fought, the more the same name returned. A warship that appeared from nowhere, struck with deadly precision, and vanished before the Dominion could destroy it. Some called it a ghost. Others called it a nightmare. But the humans, they gave it another name. They called it the Iron Will. The Dominion pretended not to care. But the truth was, they did. Reports came in of Dominion fleets that should have returned victorious but didn't. Patrols lost contact without warning. Wreckage of once mighty warships drifted in the void, torn apart by weapons the Dominion did not fully understand. Each time, the same signature was found, the same human design, always one ship, always escaping. Arrogance turned to irritation, irritation turned to anger, and anger, slowly, began to change into something far more dangerous. Doubt. In their grand halls, the Dominion's leaders spoke in harsh voices. Some demanded the ghost ship be hunted down at all costs. Others warned against wasting resources on a legend, but beneath their debates lay a truth none of them wished to admit. For the first time, they were afraid. Not afraid of humanity's strength. Humanity had little compared to the Empire. No, they were afraid of humanity's will, because will could not be measured, will could not be broken with numbers, and will had already shaped this war. The soldiers began to notice it first. They whispered when their officers weren't listening. They checked the shadows before patrols. They jumped at false signals. They feared that the next time they entered a system, the ghost ship would be waiting with its guns, waiting with its defiance, waiting to remind them that the Dominion was not as untouchable as it claimed. The Empire had conquered so much, so easily, that they had forgotten what it meant to truly fight. But now, in the cold dark of space, they were learning again, learning that there was something more dangerous than firepower, something stronger than numbers. A single human warship had shown them that. And though they still mocked, still pretended to be invincible, the truth was clear. The Dominion was no longer just marching forward, it was being watched, and deep inside, in places they would never admit, the conquerors felt the first cracks in their certainty. The ghost ship was real, humanity was real, and humanity would not kneel. The Dominion fleet entered the system with confidence. Their ships stretched across the void in a long line of steel and fire, engines burning bright, weapons humming with silent promise. They expected no resistance. For them, this was routine. Another system, another victory, another world to kneel before their empire. But as their senses swept the dark, something strange appeared. At first, it was only a flicker, a signal so faint it almost seemed like a ghost. The commanders laughed, and dismissed it as noise, the echo of a dying star or the remains of some wreck drifting in the void. Yet the signal stayed, cold, steady, waiting. And then, from the shadows, it revealed itself. One ship, human-built, alone. The Dominion officers stared at the display screens in disbelief. Not a fleet, not a hidden armada, just a single warship, drifting into their path, its silhouette dark against the stars. It should have been a laughable sight, a tiny spark against their storm. But no one laughed this time. The human ship was not retreating, it was not hiding, it was waiting. Slowly it powered up. The glow of its engines lit the black like a rising star. Shields hummed, cannons unfolded with sharp, deliberate movements, like a beast baring its teeth. Each system came alive, one after another, until the entire vessel blazed with readiness. A silence fell over the Dominion fleet. Then the human ship spoke. A transmission cut through the void, short and sharp, carrying words that none of them expected. "Turn back," the voice said, calm, firm, human. "This is your only warning." The Dominion commanders erupted with laughter. Now the mockery came, sharp and cruel. How could one ship stand against them? Did the humans really believe this was anything more than a desperate show? Orders were given to advance. Fighters swarmed out like angry insects, engines screaming. As they closed in, destroyers adjusted their cannons. Flagships prepared their massive weapons, confident the fight would be over in moments. The human ship did not move. Then, in a heartbeat, it struck. The first shot ripped through the lead destroyer, like fire through paper. One moment it was there, the next it was torn apart, exploding in a blaze that lit up the system. Before the Dominion could react, the warship fired again. Another ship crumbled into silence, its pieces drifting into the void. The human vessel moved with precision, each strike cutting through armor, tearing through shields, choosing targets with deadly intent. The Dominion fleet roared back in fury. Thousands of guns lit the dark, streaking beams and missiles toward the lone ship. Explosions shook space itself. Yet the human warship endured. Its shields flared bright, its armor held, and still it answered. Every cannon fired back with thunder, every missile flew with perfect aim. Where the Dominion thought they would crush an insect, they now faced a predator. Fighters swarmed, but the ship tore them apart like sparks in a storm. Carriers launched wave after wave, only to watch them vanish in clouds of fire. Larger ships tried to circle and flank, but the warship turned with surprising speed, cutting them down before they could even find their range. The Dominion commanders shouted orders, voices sharp with panic. This was not how it was meant to be. One ship should not hold against them. One ship should not defy them. Yet the battlefield told another truth. Wreckage floated where proud ships once stood. Fires burned across the void, and through it all, the human warship pressed forward, relentless. Inside the Dominion fleet, soldiers began to whisper. Fear spread faster than fire. They had faced rebellions before, uprisings, desperate fools who fought when they should have bowed. But this was different. The humans were not begging for mercy. They were not stalling for time. They were standing, one ship against many, and still they refused to fall. The commanders tried to rally their fleets, but hesitation had already taken root. Every time the human ship fired, another Dominion vessel died. Every time it survived an attack, doubt grew sharper. The Empire had told its people they were invincible. Yet here, in this cold system, that lie was breaking apart before their eyes. And still, the human voice returned, calm, firm, steady. "Turn back," it said again. "This is your only warning." For the first time in centuries, the Dominion hesitated. They had crushed countless worlds. They had faced armies larger than this lone ship and destroyed them without effort. But never had one enemy made them feel this way. Never had one warship made them question the certainty of their empire. The human vessel burned bright in the dark, defiant and unyielding. It did not run. It did not beg. It stood alone, yet stronger than the hundreds arrayed against it. And the Dominion, for all their pride, could no longer ignore the truth pressing down on them like a weight. They had come expecting another easy victory. Instead, they had met something else entirely. They had met humanity. The void burned with light. Broken ships drifted like corpses, their flames painting the darkness with orange fire. What had begun as laughter inside the Dominion fleet had turned into chaos. Orders clashed with counter-orders. Voices shouted over one another, and panic spread like a sickness. In the center of it all, the human warship stood alive, scarred but unbroken, its guns glowing with fire, its shields humming like a wall of steel. The Dominion had faced resistance before. They had crushed rebellions, silenced, desperate last stands, erased fleets 10 times larger than this one, but never had they seen such precision. Every move the human vessel made was deliberate. Every shot struck exactly where it needed to. It was not just fighting, it was hunting. Commanders aboard the Dominion flagships tried to regain control. Their voices, once dripping with arrogance, now cracked with desperation. "Focus fire," they screamed. "Overload the defenses. Bring it down." But their words carried no strength anymore. The soldiers heard them, yet their eyes remained fixed on the dark figure that moved like a predator among their ranks. The human ship did not fight like them. Dominion ships relied on overwhelming numbers, on endless barrages of weapons that drowned their enemies. The human vessel fought differently. It was patient, cold. Every strike was calculated, aimed at weak points the Dominion did not even realize they had. A destroyer lost its engines. A carrier's hangar erupted in flames before its fighters could launch. One by one, the mighty vessels of the Dominion were broken apart, each loss carving fear deeper into the hearts of the conquerors. For the first time, the Dominion began to understand. This ship was not just a machine, it was will made into steel. Human will. Inside the warship, the crew moved with perfect focus. There was no panic in their voices, no hesitation in their hands. Each order was sharp, each response faster than thought. They had trained for this moment, lived for it. The ship itself seemed alive, its systems breathing with the rhythm of its people. Together they were more than a weapon. They were a promise that humanity would not kneel. The Dominion threw everything they had at it. Waves of fighters screamed through the void, missiles streaking like fireflies, beams slicing across the darkness. The human warship absorbed it, all shields flaring white with each impact, armor groaning under the storm. But still it endured. Still it answered. The Dominion's pride began to collapse. Their soldiers, once eager and fearless, now fought with trembling hands. They watched their comrades die, ships torn apart by the single enemy that refused to fall, and the commanders knew fear was spreading faster than they could control. Fear inside a fleet was more dangerous than any enemy. It made soldiers hesitate. It made orders falter. And once it began, it was almost impossible to stop. The human vessel pressed forward, driving straight into the heart of the Dominion formation. Its cannons roared with relentless fury, tearing holes through their once perfect line. It was madness, one ship charging into hundreds, yet it worked. Where the Dominion expected weakness, they found only fire. Where they expected surrender, they found only defiance. And then, the voice came again, calm, firm, carved into the minds of every soldier who heard it. "Turn back," it said. "No anger, no desperation. Just steady, unshaken will. This is your only warning." The Dominion fleet should have answered with laughter, but there was none left. Only silence. Silence heavy with disbelief. Silence, broken by the thunder of another warship falling to ruin. Admirals in their command chairs clenched their fists, rage mixing with fear. How could this be happening? How could their empire, the greatest force in the galaxy, be held at bay by one human vessel? It made no sense. Numbers had always been their strength. But numbers meant nothing here. Each time they sent more ships, the warship cut them down. Each time they tightened the noose, the human ship slipped free and struck where they least expected. The truth, unspoken but undeniable, began to seep through the fleet. This was not a normal fight. This was not just another enemy to be erased. This was something different, something stronger. The Dominion had always believed power came from fear. That fear kept others in line, but now they tasted their own weapon. And it was bitter, because they were afraid. The human warship moved like a ghost, its engines flaring bright, its cannons tearing open another carrier with a single devastating blast. Wreckage spun into the void, fire reflecting off the ship's scarred armor. It should have looked broken, it should have looked weak. Instead it looked unstoppable. And in that moment, a thought spread through the Dominion fleet, one so dangerous that none dared speak it aloud. If this is what one ship can do, what would happen if there were more? The battle raged on, but the outcome was no longer uncertain. The Dominion could throw ships until the stars burned out, but the warship would not yield. And with each passing moment, with each burning wreck added to the field, their pride died a little more. The conquerors had met something they had not faced in centuries. Not technology, not numbers, not even strength. They had met defiance, and defiance would not kneel. The battlefield had turned into a graveyard. Wreckage floated like broken bones. The remains of proud Dominion ships, now nothing more than silent fire drifting across the void. The human warship still stood at the center, battered but alive. its armor glowing with heat, its guns still burning bright. For the Dominion, this was no longer a battle, it was humiliation. For the humans, it was only the beginning. The Dominion regrouped. Commanders shouted with anger, their voices filled with frustration and shame. Tighten the formation. Overwhelm them. Desperation sharpened their words. But even as orders were given, fear spread through their fleets. They had never fought like this before. They had always relied on numbers, drowning their enemies in fire until nothing remained. But now, no matter how many ships they threw forward, the human vessel refused to fall. The clash became brutal. Beams of energy cut through the darkness, so bright they blinded senses. Missiles streaked in swarms, painting the void with trails of fire. Dominion fighters dove and weaved like swarms of insects, filling the space around the human ship with death. The warship answered with thunder. Its cannons fired in perfect rhythm, blasting holes in the storm, tearing through fighter wings as if they were dust in the wind. Inside the Dominion fleets, tension twisted tighter with each passing moment. Soldiers stared at their screens, watching in disbelief as one ship continued to carve through them. Every time they thought they had cornered it, the warship slipped free. Every time they believed they had broken its defenses, it answered with another devastating strike. The fear that had begun as a whisper now roared like fire in their minds. The human ship was not just holding the line, it was pushing forward. Every blast it delivered carried meaning. Every strike was like a voice screaming into the void. We will not kneel. Admirals leaned over their command chairs, sweat on their brows, fury in their eyes. It's just one ship, they spat. But the words sounded hollow even to them, because the truth was obvious. This was not just one ship. This was something more. The crew inside the human vessel moved as if they were one. Voices calm, hands steady, eyes sharp. They knew they were outnumbered. They knew the odds were impossible. Yet they never faltered. Every system of the ship answered their will. Every strike was an act of defiance, and every breath carried the same thought. Humanity will never be broken. The Dominion tried everything. Heavy cruisers moved in from both sides, pouring fire into the human vessel. Carriers launched their entire reserves, sending wave after wave into the storm. Flagships unleashed weapons designed to break fleets in seconds. The void shook with power, explosions blooming like suns, shields glowing with furious light. Still, the warship fought back. It danced between beams of destruction, its shields holding just long enough for counterstrikes to land. Its cannons turned the proud Dominion ships into flaming wrecks. Each kill struck deeper than any weapon could, because with every loss, the illusion of Dominion invincibility shattered a little more. Inside the Empire's fleet, doubt became terror. Young soldiers asked questions their commanders could not answer. Why aren't we winning? How can one ship do this? What if we can't stop it? Those questions spread like poison, eating at the discipline that once kept the Dominion strong. And then the human voice returned. Calm, cold, clear. Turn back, it said, cutting across every channel. Not shouted, not desperate, just steady, unbroken will. This is your only warning. The silence after those words was heavier than any explosion. Soldiers froze. Commanders clenched their fists. Admirals glared at one another, none daring to speak. For centuries, they had been the ones giving warnings, the ones demanding obedience. Now, for the first time, it was they who were told to stop. The warship moved again, charging into the heart of the Dominion line. It should have been madness, it should have been suicide. Yet it was victory. Its weapons tore open another carrier, igniting its fuel tanks in a chain of explosions that rocked the entire fleet. Fighters scattered, their formations breaking. As the blaze spread, the warship pressed forward through the fire, scarred and battered but alive. A beast too stubborn to die. The Dominion commanders shouted louder, ordering their fleets to stand strong, but the fear could no longer be contained. Their soldiers saw the truth with their own eyes. They were losing. To one ship. To one enemy that refused to kneel. Pride collapsed. Arrogance shattered. And in its place grew something the Dominion had not felt in centuries. Respect, bitter, unwilling, furious respect. The clash of wills was no longer about weapons or numbers. It was about resolve. The Dominion had power, but it cracked under pressure. The humans had will, and it grew stronger with every moment. Each shot the warship fired was not just an attack, it was a declaration, a message written in fire across the stars. We will not bow. We will not break. We will fight, even if we are the last ship left in the galaxy. The Dominion had conquered worlds with ease. They had crushed empires without effort, but here, against one human warship, they found themselves trapped in a battle they could not win, not because of strength, not because of size, but because of something greater, because humanity refused to kneel. The void was filled with fire. Dominion ships burned in silence, their broken hulls drifting through the darkness, their proud banners reduced to ash. The battlefield no longer looked like a formation of conquest, it looked like defeat, and yet, the Dominion still fought, too stubborn or too afraid to admit the truth. The human warship pressed on. Scarred, battered, and glowing with heat, it should not have survived. Its shields flickered, its armor cracked, but the vessel refused to fall. Each movement was precise, each strike brutal. It did not fight as though it was trying to survive. It fought as though it was trying to teach the galaxy a lesson. Inside the Dominion fleet, the mood shifted from anger to despair. Commanders shouted, louder, but their voices shook. Soldiers obeyed orders, but their hands trembled. For the first time in centuries, the Empire felt cornered. They had marched through the stars like gods, untouchable and absolute. But now, against one human ship, they felt the weight of something they did not understand. The breaking point came slowly, like cracks forming in glass. A flagship took a direct hit. Its shields flared, then collapsed, and the human cannons tore through its heart. The massive vessel split in two, its fire spilling into the void. The explosion lit up the battlefield like a false sun, casting long shadows across the fleets. Soldiers aboard other ships stared in horror, their faith in their empire collapsing with the burning wreck. If even their flagships could fall, what hope did they have? Another carrier went next, its hangars torn apart before its fighters could launch. The pilots screamed into their radios, begging for orders, but none came. Their voices cut off one by one as their ships vanished in fire. The Dominion had always believed numbers would save them, but here, their numbers were their weakness. Each new ship destroyed was another wound to their pride. Each wreck floating in the void was proof that they were not invincible. And still, the human voice returned. Calm, steady, relentless. Turn back, it said. This is your only warning. The words echoed across every channel. Soldiers heard them, commanders heard them, admirals heard them, and though they wanted to deny it, though they wanted to laugh as they once had, the words sank deep because the warship had earned the right to speak them. Inside the Dominion command halls, arguments broke out. Some admirals demanded they retreat, insisting the cost was too high. Others shouted for more ships, desperate to prove their strength. But beneath their rage, beneath their pride, all of them knew the truth. They were losing, and worse than losing, they were afraid. The human warship charged again, plunging straight through the middle of their formation. Its engines flared, its cannons thundered, and its missiles cut across the void like spears of fire. Dominion vessels scattered in panic, breaking formation. Their once perfect line dissolved into chaos, and in that chaos, the humans thrived. It became more than a battle, it became a message. The Dominion had built their empire on fear. Fear had kept worlds in chains. Fear had silenced rebellion before it began. But now, that weapon turned against them. Fear spread through their fleets, faster than any fire. Pilots hesitated before engaging, captains delayed before firing. Whole ships broke away from formation, desperate to escape the storm. The breaking point had arrived. For centuries, the Dominion had believed themselves eternal. They thought nothing could challenge their rule, that no species could resist their might. But here, in the cold silence of space, one warship had proved them wrong. Humanity had reminded them that power is not measured by numbers, nor by size, nor by arrogance. Power is measured by will, and the will of humanity was stronger than anything they had ever faced. The admirals tried to hide their fear. They shouted orders to regroup, to stand firm, to crush the lone ship, but their words no longer carried weight. The soldiers heard them, but they also heard the truth in the silence between explosions. The Empire was not invincible. The warship had proved it. More ships exploded, their fire lighting the void with blinding brilliance. The wreckage floated past survivors like a warning, each piece a reminder that they were standing on the edge of ruin. The Dominion had conquered worlds with ease, but now they faced an enemy they could not conquer. One by one, Dominion vessels began to falter. Some shut down their weapons, some turned their engines away from the fight, others tried to retreat. In secret, fleeing into the dark, fear had broken them. The human ship slowed, drifting through the wreckage like a phantom. Its guns remained ready, its shields battered but alive. The crew inside said nothing. They didn't need to. Their actions spoke louder than any words could. The message was clear. You will not break us, you will not conquer us. Humanity does not kneel. And in that moment across the battlefield, even the Dominion knew it was true. The breaking point had come. The conquerors were no longer hunters, they were prey. The battlefield had gone silent. The stars shimmered coldly above the wreckage of the Dominion fleet, their light falling on twisted metal and broken fire drifting endlessly through the void. The great empire that had marched across galaxies, without pause, now hung in ruins, shattered not by an armada, not by a coalition of worlds, but by one warship that refused to kneel. The human vessel floated at the center of it all. Its armor was torn, blackened by fire. Sections of its hull glowed red where impacts had burned deep, yet it remained alive, its silhouette strong against the stars, its cannons still warm, its shields still whispering with faint energy. Battered, scarred, and worn but unbroken, from the Dominion ships that survived, silence reigned. Commanders stared at their displays with wide eyes, unable to believe what they were seeing. Soldiers sat frozen at their stations, hands hovering over controls they no longer dared to touch. Admirals, once proud and arrogant, could not speak. They had no words, because there were no excuses. Their fleets, their power, their empire itself had been humbled by one vessel, one people, one world. Then, across every channel, the human voice returned. .com/steady. Final. You will not conquer us, it said. The words cut through the silence like a blade. You will not break us. Turn back. Tell your masters, humanity does not kneel. The Dominion had received countless surrender messages before. They had heard begging, pleading, crying, endless voices asking for mercy. But never this. Never defiance spoken so simply, so quietly, yet carrying more weight than the roar of entire fleets. The voice was not a threat. It was not a boast. It was a truth. Some Dominion captains, trembling, began shutting down their weapons. Others turned their ships slowly away from the field, their engines burning low as they drifted into retreat. A few, too proud or too afraid to face their leaders in defeat, destroyed their own vessels rather than return with shame. What remained of the once mighty fleet scattered, fleeing into the dark, leaving behind only silence and fear. The human warship watched them go. It did not chase. It did not fire on the retreating ships. It simply waited, standing as a sentinel in the void, a monument to the truth that had carved into the galaxy. Humanity was not weak. Humanity was not prey. Humanity was something far greater, something the Dominion could not understand until now. Stories spread quickly. Survivors whispered of the battle, of the ghostly warship that destroyed fleets and spoke with unshaken calm. Those whispers became tales. Those tales became warnings. Soon, across star systems far beyond the battlefield, across colonies and stations and hidden worlds, the same words repeated again and again. The humans still fight, and with every retelling, the fear grew sharper. The Dominion had conquered worlds with ease, but no longer did their soldiers march with the same pride. No longer did their admirals boast of easy victories. Every time they prepared for war, a shadow hung over their minds. What if the warship appeared? What if, in the silence of space, its voice spoke again? For the conquered, hope began to rise, where none had existed before. Refugees, once broken, lifted their heads and whispered the same name: humanity. Soldiers of fallen worlds clenched their fists, daring to believe resistance was not futile. Children on distant colonies grew up hearing the story of the human warship, their eyes burning with dreams of freedom. The Dominion had not just lost a battle, it had lost its illusion. The warship turned slowly, its engines igniting once more. The crew inside moved with quiet exhaustion, but also with pride. They had faced the impossible and endured. They had shown the galaxy the truth of humanity, a truth that could not be silenced with destruction or erased with conquest. As the vessel slipped back into the dark, vanishing among the stars, its message lingered in the void, not written in text, not carved in stone, but carried in the hearts of all who had seen, heard, or whispered its name. Humanity does not kneel. The Empire, so proud and untouchable, now carried scars deeper than any wound of steel. For the first time in centuries, the Dominion was afraid, not of human weapons, not of human fleets, but of human will, and they knew, though they would never say it aloud, that this was only the beginning. Because if one warship could do this, what would happen when all of humanity stood together? The stars remained silent, but the answer was clear. The age of easy conquest was over. The age of defiance had begun.